Do I love Mackenzie? So I would say,
You were my Love Island experience, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
When you were dumped from the villa, it seemed pretty unanimous that you were going to be going after Mackenzie. I mean, you said you were coming for Gus. Moira was even hyping you up to go after her. So where is your head at right now?
where my head is at right now is definitely to try and go see Mackenzie. Right now, I was able to give her a little FaceTime directly after leaving. So I think she has the same feelings as me. So I'm going to go home for a day or two and hopefully go out to see her in Arizona.
We saw a little bit of that FaceTime. So what was going through your head when you were making that call?
Yeah, I almost didn't do it actually. I was super nervous because I was just, I don't know. I know the ending of it was a sad ending to see her go, but I think we were starting to, we had a very good kind of last conversation before the night that she left, and I know we were heading in the right direction, but I was still super nervous to, still make that phone call. I didn't know if she was gonna pick up, but no, she did seem, super happy and excited to, see that it was from me. And it made me so happy that, how she reacted and kind of validated how I felt. I'm very hopeful that, going forward, this can be something that, definitely we can grow from. I almost feel like it might be easier for us in the way that we both left this experience. I felt like we had our ups and downs through our time there, but I do feel like we were 100% heading in the right direction after it. And hopefully that is something that we can continue to grow on and do it together.
Yeah, I mean, we watched all the ups and downs, and I felt like there was like some communication barriers there that need to be addressed. So what would you say like needs to change or needs to happen in order for you guys to have a successful go at things? Like, what did you learn about each other through this process?
Just being honest with myself and telling the other person, up front that, this is, whether it's, this is what makes me happy and how you're treating me, or this is not what, this is something that we need to work on. And I, don't, appreciate maybe certain things that, you're doing right now. And because it's making me feel this certain way, that is something that, I wasn't very good at, being transparent with Mackenzie about. But I do think it is something that I was able to work on and grow from during my time in the villa. Maybe I think I would point to one thing that I think Mackenzie could work on: communicating certain things as far as, when she feels like she needs more attention in a more clear way, I guess, to me, because that was something that was very confusing to me. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I would just say overall, just being a little bit more like transparent with, why certain things made her feel a certain way, and why certain events that were seemingly insignificant to me made her feel a little bit more emotional. Those were kind of the points that just left me a little confused. And but besides that, it's I think just the miscommunication between us, and me feeling as though I need to be a little bit more assertive and just be true to how I'm feeling with her were 2 points that I can just think of right now that I hope to be able to grow better with her.
Do you love her?
Do I love Mackenzie? So I would say I do love Mackenzie. And I told her that as she was leaving, actually. And I know that is a very big deal and loaded statement to make, but that is, I think, how I truly feel towards her. And I hope that I can continue growing those feelings. I did feel as though I was falling for her in the villa. And just receiving, the validation that she still has those feelings, especially after, where both of us are at right now, and making that phone call to her whenever I left, just made my feelings that much stronger.
So when she was kicked off Love Island, prior to that, it seemed like you were trying to move on. You were going to couple up with Moira, and she was kind of talking to you about the Jalen situation. And you were like, why are you talking to me about this? Like, I'm not there yet. But once it was like she was voted off, it seemed like you had this like epiphany. So what happened? Like, did you feel like you didn't, how did Mackenzie leaving affect you, and how did it change your feelings?
My intent whenever I picked Moira instead of Mackenzie was I was just not at the point where I could hop back into something again with Mackenzie. I think she needed more time to grow and find herself as an individual in our group setting, and I felt as though I was able to experience that being single for a few days, and truly understood what I wanted out of being in the villa. I felt as though her coming out of things with Jalen, I felt as though she needed more time to herself, and I think she needed to prioritize herself instead of just hopping back into something that she left for some valid reason, and I didn't want to. I personally was not there, and I think I would have been doing her a disservice by choosing her at that recoupling ceremony. So, that is why I went with Moira. I think in the back of my mind, I knew that there would not be anything more than a strong friendship with Moira. Mm-hmm. It was more so me recognizing the fact that Mackenzie needed more time to herself after not recoupling up with Jalen. And I fully intended, if we had the time together to do so in the villa, to give her a second chance after seeing that growth in her, and giving her that time to process things. So that didn't happen, but hopefully that is something that we can continue working on outside the villa.
Yeah, like when I was talking to Jalen, he kind of said that once like he kind of got to know the guys a little bit, and they were kind of telling him like, don't be with Mackenzie, she's like a little controlling, this and that, he was kind of turned off about it. So do you feel like you had any influence from the other guys, or maybe from America's like way of voting, that you were like, maybe I shouldn't be talking to Mackenzie as much?
I will definitely say that was a contributing factor to considering if Mackenzie and I were truly compatible. I do respect I respected to the utmost all of the opinions from the fellow guys in there. I definitely confided in them for advice, and we all had each other's backs, and I appreciated anything they were willing to offer me. So yes, that was definitely a pressure that I did feel. Mackenzie and I could make things work, and absolutely by hearing what the public had to say, not even the first time wanting me to go on a date with Lauren, but also we had a ceremony where we received not enough votes to get even in we were basically one of the least compatible couples there. So that was in the back of my head during our connection, and trying to see if it could grow into something more. But I think I always knew how I felt towards her, and it was these little bumps in the road that did make me question certain things, and whether a question in regards to our compatibility with each other. Mm-hmm. And I feel as though they were small to me, but the fact that I was hearing all of these negative opinions apart as to us working, not only from the guys in the villa but also from the public, it almost amplified them. I think outside the villa it would be easier for me to quiet those opinions going forward. Mm-hmm. And that's why I mentioned that I feel as though it will be easier for us. But yeah, absolutely, I think during the experience that without question did play a factor in kind of our connection and trying to make it work.
I want to ask you about the Casa Amor situation, because I talked to the girls from Casa Amor and they just like loved you. Yeah. And I felt like, even like the Mercedes we saw on TV was not the Mercedes that I talked to. It was almost like talking to two different people. So do you wish that you opened yourself up a little more to the girls in Casa Amor? Or do you think you made the right move?
I don't regret, my decision to, not pursue things romantically or try to get to that point with any of the girls. And I fully did recognize that there was a real possibility based on, where I left things with Mackenzie that, because of that decision that I made, that I would be walking back in very vulnerable and as, a possibility that I could be left single. But I think, recognizing that fact during my time at Casa Amor, it was something that I felt as though if it did happen and I was left single, that it was something that could only help me figure out and make the most of my opportunity, being, on Love Island and find my purpose for being here. Because the entire time since day one, I was with Mackenzie, and I felt as though if that was, meant to be, then it would happen. But if I was also, walk back in there and be single, then that was what I needed to really be open to this experience and see if there was someone else that I could grow a connection with. So in the end, I do think it all worked out the way that I had hoped it to work out, and I don't have any regrets for how I acted whenever we were at Casa Amor with the girls.
When you walked in with that with the teddy bear, it was one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever watched. What was going through your head? Did you think that Mackenzie was going to recouple with somebody else?
I was not expecting, in any sense of the word, for her to recouple up with someone. But I did recognize how real of a possibility it was. And so, walking back in with Gus, I knew that at the end of the day, regardless of what her decision was, that, she sent me him for a good reason, to take care of him and make sure nothing bad happened to him. And I wanted to uphold that standard and reason for her sending him to me. So, I didn't want to, come back in and not have him in my arms for the reason that she sent him, to me. So I recognized that it may have looked like a very vulnerable and kind of like, oh, like Connor looks like a sucker right now. He's single and he's got her bear in his arms and stuff. But
I didn't think that.
no, I was willing. I think the biggest thing was I was his caretaker and I needed to come back with him, regardless of whatever decision was, awaiting me.
Do you regret anything about how things played out with Mackenzie or with anything else? Is there anything that you wish you had done differently?
The way I went about my speech when I selected Moira, I think was a little maybe unexpected, and I think it was hurtful, I think, towards Mackenzie, and not, I think, truly how I felt about Moira. I wish I was more honest with Moira in telling her exactly how I felt. Mm-hmm. Earlier, I felt as though that was all the guys had to make a decision that night, and I felt that was the best decision for me. I wish that I maybe would have been more clear in my feelings and recognizing that I guess I was open to seeing if there could be something more romantically with Moira, mm-hmm. but I think the fact that because I still had feelings for Mackenzie, that I knew that would never really fully realize itself. So I do regret not being more transparent with Moira in that aspect. And I do wish that I went about my time with Mackenzie that the next day in a better manner, in a more caring and wanting, supportive manner. And, we did have a good conversation. We kind of left everything out on the table as far as, how we were feeling inside. I guess I was just afraid to ask her how she was feeling and seeing, that, I guess the way that she handled situations prior to that, just, it not forced me, but it just made me very uncomfortable with, kind of addressing, seeing how she was doing. Although I did, end up going to her and having a talk. I do think we left on a very positive note, moving in the right direction. I think I could have done a better job at giving her the time that she needed and someone to be there for her when, my selection really kind of took her best friend away from her.
Yeah, I talked to her after, and by the way, she is very much open to pursuing things with you. She told me that, but we were talking about that, and I was like, why did you seem so betrayed by Moira and Connor? And because I didn't feel like you necessarily owed her the conversation, because it seemed like on television that you guys were done at that point, but maybe that wasn't the case. But she said that the speech was what really upset her because it seemed like up until the very end that you might have been about to pick Mackenzie.
I was still kind of processing how I felt with coming back and seeing her recoupled up with someone, which did hurt. So I was not trying to just one up and kind of like, oh, get my ego back or anything. Yeah, I could have probably gone about it in a different manner and said different words. I just didn't. I regret that the way it came across was seeming as though my intent was to hurt her, which it could not be farther from the truth.
She lives in Arizona. Where do you live?
Yeah, I live in Pittsburgh.
Okay, so you guys are gonna have to be long distance.
Yeah, hopefully I can go see her in a few days after settling in back home for a little bit, and we can kind of see how we want to proceed from here. So I just graduated from school in May, and I actually don't start working full time until December. So I do have a couple months to make the most of this time with her, and hopefully that when I do start work, it is fully remote for now. So maybe that is just something that we can spend a lot more time with each other, especially because I have this time before I do start work. So it is, I feel like a perfect case scenario like right now for the next couple months. So hopefully we can lay some groundwork and build a strong foundation before we do have to, or at least I have to go in a certain direction, with my life.
I love her. I talked to her the other day, and I just felt like that environment wasn't necessarily the best place for her.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Yeah. I think it was a tough situation for her. I do feel as though a lot of the opinions that were, formed about her from some of the other Islanders were because of the times that maybe she did feel as though she needed to be alone, or, maybe just be alone with me, which certain times I felt as though I didn't really know because I was very unaware that sometimes I didn't know that she was by herself. I mean, cannot say enough good things about her as an individual. And, she made things so easy for me since day one walking in there. And, for that, I'll always be thankful that I did meet her in this manner. And, she challenged me in a lot of different ways to help me grow. And I think she was extremely selfless in that manner in helping me. But I do think that, on the outside of this experience that maybe, this show is not for everyone. This experience is very unique and different in its own way. And, I hope that, getting back to normal life and having your support system around you, that for the both of us, we can truly lean on that and, hopefully just continue working on us as a couple going forward.